Hey guys, welcome to M&M IELTS. Today I will be continuing the speaking session, which is speaking part 3. So earlier we had uploaded speaking part 1 and then speaking part 2. Now today we will be discussing about speaking part 3, which is the last part of your speaking exam in your IELTS test. Now we all know from the previous videos, if you have watched, that speaking is divided into 3 parts, and today we will be discussing only part 3 of IELTS test. So let us understand what is part 3, what are the do's for part 3, what are the don'ts for part 3, and how can we work in a way so that we get a very good score, because according to me, part 3 is the most important part of your IELTS test, of your speaking IELTS test, and at the same time, the maximum amount of preparation that one needs is for part 3 compared to part 1 and part 2, because part 3 according to me is an interview session. I would call it an interview session. The reason I would call part 3 an interview session, because it is a continuous back and forth conversation between two people. One is the person who is taking your test, and the second is obviously you yourself who is giving the test. So when two people are talking, it is called a dialogue, because there are two people involved. It's a dialogue. So something will be said by the teacher and then you respond to that question. After you respond, there will be another question based on what you said in the past few answers that you have given, or maybe in part 2 they will pick up something from that. They will ask you another question, then you give answer to that question, and then they ask you another question. So it's like a constant back and forth. It's a conversation between two people. So I like to call this as an interview session, which will last for approximately 4 to 5 minutes. Now the most common topics for part 3 are related to food, family, education, work, or you can call it employment, or even business, art, entertainment, culture. These are the most common topics that have been repeated a lot in your IELTS test. Now, part 3 is directly dependent on part 2. So part 2 is like a cue card session, okay? So they'll give you a cue card and then you talk about those questions, those points. Now let's say in part 2, your cue card, the topic was about art. For example, let's take it about art. So when part 2 is about art, you have to have this assumption somewhere back of the mind that part 3 will be a detailed discussion on art. It is nothing else but whatever you have been talking in part 2, the detailed discussion of that same topic happens in part 3. So they will not come up with something new, they will still continue that same topic. So the biggest suggestion I can give you over here is try to be as natural as possible, as honest as possible. Don't try to create something that you are not as an individual, as a personality, because when you be yourself, when you talk straight from heart, when you talk what you feel, it becomes very easy for you to deliver the message that you are trying to deliver, and it also becomes very easy for the person who is sitting opposite you to understand what you are trying to say. And at the same time, when you try to be fake or someone else or something that you are not, it is very evident that you are trying to be something different. You're saying something but you mean something else, and that is not a good impression to get a good score. In part 3, whenever you will be discussing about any particular topic, let's take art for this video as an example throughout the video. Now, whenever you talk anything about art, whenever you give any answer, prefer giving answer in a way, include the words of which you have knowledge, because whatever answer you will give, the next question will be based on what answer you gave. So the more you talk about something that you have no idea of, the more you will struggle to answer the questions based on that topic. And the more you answer in a way for something that you have knowledge of, the more comfortable you will be and confident you will be to answer questions on the topic that you have knowledge of. For example, if there is a topic of art and if I have knowledge of dance as an art, then I will prefer talking about dance and not talk about painting just to look very good or something different. Because if I talk about dance as an art because I have knowledge of dance, for example, I'm saying, then when I talk about dance, the examiner can see that I'm very confident while talking, while speaking English, while delivering my message, and that helps a lot to get a better score. Now, because I'm giving my opinion, part 3 is based on what you believe, what you feel, what is your opinion. So it is always good to use words like according to me, I believe, if you ask me, if this question is asked to me. These statements basically you are using to show that this is your point of view. You are showing your point of view. Never give statements as a judgment like this is the best thing that has to be done. Don't say that. Say according to me, this should be done. This is what I believe. This must have been done. Like you believe a certain thing. This is your point of view. Show it as your point of view. Show it what you believe. Don't give judgments. Don't speak as if you're passing a law or you're passing a bill. That's not our end goal. Just share your point of view, your perspective, and that is more than enough to get a very good score. The next thing I would like to share over here is, now when I say the most common topics are food, family, education, work, employment, business, culture, entertainment, art, this does not mean that you sit and start memorizing questions or answer related to these topics. Trust me, if you memorize the answers related to most common topics of IELTS test, and if let's say luckily you get any one of them, for example you get food, okay, and you start answering the question based on what you have memorized while practicing, within a few seconds the examiner will identify that this is something you are saying because you have memorized it, and you will not get any score because the examiner will have a clear understanding of what you are doing. You are speaking because you have memorized something. Your choice of words, if you are using a certain word or a group of words just because you want to show that you have a very good English, and that word or those words, they're not a good match in that sentence, they will immediately understand what you are trying to do. So I would suggest here not to trick your examiner. They have much more experience than you. They have taken so many exams of so many different students. They know what you are trying to do. They have gone through these situations many times. The best way to get a very good IELTS score is to practice speaking every single day. Practice, not memorize the answer. Be natural, be yourself, have a smile while talking, be confident, sit erect and with your spinal cord erect, talk confidently, have that confidence on your face, and the examiner can see that this student is prepared, well prepared, and that is why they are talking like this. Also, don't be overconfident, and please don't repeat sentences like, oh, that's a great question, again and again, because in IELTS, repetition is not good, especially in your speaking. If you have said something once, a phrase or a idiom or any sentence, prefer not using it again, because when you use the same sentence or word repeatedly, that shows that your vocabulary is very limited. Your vocabulary, your list of vocabulary doesn't have a very wide range, which is not good for a very good score. So prefer using different words every time to show that you have a very good list of vocabulary in your head. Your fluency should be very good, as in you should not have a lot of hesitations. These things are not good for a good fluency score. Pronunciation has to be your focus as well. You have to be very clear. Every single word you speak has to be clearly understandable by the examiner who's sitting opposite you. Please don't create fake accents. Don't be someone you are not. If you are, for example, from X country, you have a certain accent, stick to your accent. IELTS is not about changing your accent to some other country people. I have been living in this country for many years. I still prefer speaking the way I am comfortable, and I don't want to unnecessarily change my accent just because I'm living in a certain country. Because if you stick to your accent, you sound more natural, and the person again sitting opposite you is way more experienced and they exactly know what you're trying to do. Never think that if you have a very good accent or change your accent, that's the key to get a good score. That is actually not the key. Also, another thing that you need to keep in mind is grammatical error. When you speak, you have to be grammatically correct. You have to make sure that if you're talking in past tense, you continuously talk in past tense. If it's continuous future, you have to take care of those tenses, the prepositions that you use. If it's a question, it should sound like a question. If it's a sentence, it should sound like a sentence. The use of the, or, because, you have to understand all these things. So the best thing to do is, whenever you practice, record yourself and then listen to your recording and see, at least you can judge if you are hesitating, if you are clear or not, or are you repeating the words. And if you are repeating the words, write down the words that you repeat every now and then and see what can you use as a replacement. You can always Google the synonym of that word and see what are the other words that can be used in that scenario. That will give you that will help you to develop a wide range of vocabulary. Now let us do one thing. Let us take art again as an example and see what different type of questions can you get and how can you answer them. Let us do one or two questions today, and if you practice using that method or keeping these few tips that I have shared today in this video, I'm 100% sure that you will get a very good score in part 3. Now let us say you had a cue card discussion about art. Obviously that was a very brief and to the point discussion. Now obviously part 3 is a detailed discussion, as we have just shared interview. So they will ask you question and then you answer. Let us write down art here. Now for instance, the first question is, what type of art is the best? Let us say this is the question. Let us assume this is the question. What type of art is the best? Now, if I have been asked this question, I would start by saying, according to me. Because remember I shared, it should be your opinion, your point of view, your perspective. Don't say the best art is painting. That is again a judgment you're giving. Don't say that. Prefer sharing your point of view. This is what interview is all about. This is what you feel and you believe. It's not necessary that the world should feel the same. That is your perspective, not world's perspective. So there's a huge difference between these two. So I would say, according to me, dance is the best form of art. And the reason I'm saying that is because I love dance very much. See, I have said that in one sentence without any hesitation. Clarity was taken care. Vocabulary was okay, decent. I did not repeat anything. I did not fit any word unnecessarily just to project that I have a very good English. So it was a very decent explanation. Obviously, it should be a little more in detail. Let us see how we can do that, okay? So, what type of art is the best? According to me, dance is the best form of art because I love dance since childhood and I have been learning dance from past 8 years, and amongst dance, salsa is my most favorite. See how you have elaborated and explained dance? That teacher knows that you have some knowledge of dance. Now imagine, just because you want to sound a little different and you say, according to me, calligraphy is the best form of art. Now you have no knowledge of calligraphy. What will you say next? So it's best to be simple and speak about what you know and the knowledge that you have, rather than saying calligraphy because you want to show something different, but then you have no idea what to say as the next sentence. So calligraphy is also a great form of art, but do you have knowledge about it? You can say music, you can say painting, anything. Cooking is an art. There's a lot of different range of arts that you can stick to, but stick to one, I would say. That's the best. Now, let us say the next question is, what are the traditional form of arts in your country? So if I have been asked this question, what are the traditional form of arts in your country? How would I answer? I believe the traditional form of art in my country depends on several aspects. Like people from North prefer dance as their most favorite form of art, whereas on the other hand, people from South prefer painting as their most loved form of art. But it is not the case in West and East, because West and East have a complete different culture compared to North and South, and they prefer music as their most loved form of art. Now, most loved form of art, I have used it again. This is what you don't have to do. So what can you use? Immediately write it down. Most loved form of art. Why? Because I used it again. When you are practicing, open Google and see what can I use. Is most close to their heart. See how you can replace it just by using a different word. Or if you don't want to use close to their heart, what else can you do? Is the most respectable form of art. Same meaning you're trying to deliver using different words. This is how you need to practice. The moment you realize you have repeated something, don't sit and panic, oh, I'm repeating. No, write it down. Why have you repeated it? Because it's there in your head. What can you use? Write down those other words, those synonyms, or the synonym phrase that will help you to deliver the same message in a different way. That is the key to success in part 3. Now, because you have described north, south, different directions of your country and different form like painting and music and dance, the next question can be based on whatever you just said. So the next question can be based on, let's say, music. The teacher might ask, why north or any other direction, whatever I said, why north and east prefer music? Why do you think that's the case? So then you have to come up with an answer that you feel is a genuine answer, but at the same time keep one thing in mind. You are not getting score on the basis of what is your general knowledge. Your general knowledge is not getting tested. So in case if you deliver an information which is not 100% correct, even if it is not correct, that is okay. You are getting score based on how you speak English. How is your English? How is your vocabulary? How is your fluency, pronunciation, grammar? That is important, not how much knowledge do you have about your country. Because trust me, every person sitting and giving exam will not have knowledge or not necessarily have knowledge of the topic that they ask. Let's say they give me a very difficult topic of entrepreneurship. Now, if a student who has never heard of entrepreneurship or has never practiced entrepreneurship gets that topic and has a very good English, does that mean that because that student doesn't know about entrepreneurship will not get a good IELTS band? No, entrepreneurship has nothing to do with IELTS English test. English test is because of what English you have. So if you talk about any topic confidently and try to convey your message with whatever knowledge you have, that is perfectly fine. Just don't try to be over smart and overconfident, and just don't be loud when you talk, and don't use those cool gestures the way we talk to our friends. You know what, I'm gonna do this. These are not good for your IELTS test. Be very professional. Don't speak English using I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that, I wanna that, wanna, gonna. These things, keep it to your friends and your casual conversations, not for IELTS test. Be very professional, very clean in terms of answering the question. Let us do one more question related to art and then we'll wrap this video up. Let us say the next question is, do you think art should be an important subject in schools? It's a very clear indication that they are asking your point of view. Okay, there is one disadvantage of this type of questions, and that is when you start talking in detail, when you give detailed answer, it is very easy for you to get off track, off the topic, just because you are in that zone of answering and you just want to showcase your vocabulary and your English. Please don't be off track and don't divert from the main topic. If you divert from art and start talking about something else, they will notice it and they will start deducting your score, because your primary focus has to be your main topic. Whatever you say, whatever you are speaking has to be connected with the topic that you are talking about. It cannot be about global warming if you are talking about art. No matter how important global warming is, you still have to talk only about art. Similarly, in this question, Do you think art should be an important subject in schools? Again, the topic is revolving around art. Now, how will you answer? If you ask me, art should be a mandatory subject in schools because I believe that art is the only place where students can pour their heart out and express what they believe using their favorite form of art like dance, music, and painting. See, one sentence, detailed answering, no repetition, confidence. This is how you have to answer your part 3 questions and answer in a way that whatever you speak, the next question will be based on that. This link is very important. I hope you have understood what part 3 is and what sort of questions can you get and how you should prepare. If you feel that you have any questions, feel free to put comments in the comment section below and ask about your question, ask about your doubts, and we are more than happy to answer every single question that you have. And we are also happy to carry forward this if you want a one-on-one session with us, if you need any help with us, and we are more than happy to help you. With that, I'll take your leave and I'll see you next time with another video and another content. Bye for now.